The most ambitious global soccer tournament ever created is happening this summer, and it seems like nobody knows or cares about it. No, not that World Cup. The FIFA Club World Cup. Now let's go to the tape and figure out why this is happening, how it works, and why I'm telling you it's going to fail. Now stop me if this sounds familiar. FIFA prioritizes cash over everything. How do you think we got a World Cup in Qatar?
The winner to organize the 2022 FIFA World Cup is Qatar.
And are getting another one in Saudi Arabia in short time.
The host of the FIFA World Cup 2034 will be Saudi Arabia.
Sepp Blatter and his boys might have taken it too far, but Infantino is playing on the edge and just squeezing every dollar out of the game that he can while he's still in charge. But at some point, it's possible he stopped listening to his critics and his fans and maybe even his employees, the players, because it's not totally clear that people actually want this tournament to happen, or that the players even want to play in it. Now, on paper, it kind of rules.
Explain who will be involved in that. Do I get the best of the best?
You get the best of the best. Well, Harry Kane and Mbappe will be there as well. So Leo Messi and many, many others. The 32 best club teams in the world.
A World Cup-style tournament to determine who is the best club in the world. If only there was a tournament where we could watch the best teams in the world play every year. Like Arsenal and Liverpool, PSG, maybe like Man United every now and then, or Real Madrid. I don't know. We could call it like the UEFA Champions League. But I get it. I know there are good teams outside of Europe. There are some, and there are really good teams in Brazil and maybe in North America that don't necessarily get to show it on a global stage too often. So this is kind of a cool idea. But FIFA has already been doing this almost every year since 2000. They take the winners of the Champions League in all 7 continents and they put them in a tournament where the South American winner and the European winner get a bye to the semifinal, and they play to determine the Club World Cup champion. You might remember some amazing finals like 2022, Real Madrid versus Al Hilal.
Carvajal in towards Valverde! As for the 5th time, they win the FIFA Club World Cup.
Or 2023, Man City versus Fluminense. Now, it might not be surprising for you to hear that a European club has won 16 of the last 17 Club World Cup finals. And if it's news to you that this happens every year, you wouldn't be the only one. These matches don't really get a whole lot of buzz. They're played in December, usually in places like Morocco, Saudi Arabia, or Japan, that typically don't get these kinds of clubs coming through for matches. Really just driving home the point that this is more of a traveling circus than a meaningful competition. But somehow or another, Infantino got the idea that this tournament just needs to get expanded. That might solve all of its problems. Now, the format itself makes sense. Just copy the tried and true World Cup format, 32 teams, 8 groups of 4, top 2 get through and compete in a knockout stage. That has worked forever. But deciding who actually gets to play in the tournament is where the controversies start to come in, and you could start to see why it might not be as interesting as FIFA is hoping. Each continent gets a set number of spots based on FIFA rankings. Oceania gets 1, Asia, Africa, CONCACAF, which is North America, Central America, and the Caribbean, 4 each. South America gets 6. And Europe gets 12. And there's 1 extra spot held for a host nation. This time around, that will be the US, where an extra MLS team will get to play in this tournament. Now, to decide who gets each of those spots, they look at the continental champions from the last 4 years leading up to the Club World Cup, which in most places is the Champions League. So if you won the Champions League in your continent between 2021 and 2024, you have an automatic berth in the Club World Cup. After the automatic bids are given, they go to the continental rankings of all of the clubs in that continent to decide who gets to fill in the remaining spots. With one huge caveat, and that is only 2 teams per country maximum can get added to the Club World Cup. That means that Manchester City, who won a Champions League in this period, and Chelsea, who won the Champions League in 2021, are the only 2 teams from England that get to go to the Club World Cup. And the Chelsea situation is an interesting one because they were decent this year. They won the Champions League in 2021, and they haven't been all that great since then. And you could very easily argue they are not one of the best 12 clubs in Europe right now. But that's how the format works, and those are the clubs that will be going. Now, there is an exception made if multiple clubs from a country won their top competition, which is how Brazil managed to get 4 clubs in this year, which again, European clubs aren't too happy about. Winning a South American Cup versus winning the European Cup, not necessarily equal, But those are the rules. Now, interestingly, only one MLS club qualified through those criteria I just laid out for you. And that's Seattle, who won the 2022 CONCACAF Champions League. LAFC got in after Club Lyon was disqualified for multiple team ownership rules. LAFC then went to a playoff that they won, and they've earned their way in.
LAFC has done it. Today, America. Tomorrow, the world.
And then there's Inter Miami. MLS knew for some time that there was going to be one extra club that would get into the Club World Cup, but FIFA didn't really tell them how that was going to work. It wasn't sure if it was going to be up to them to decide how, or if FIFA would tell them. At the halfway point last year during the All-Star break, MLS Commissioner Don Garber suggested that maybe the MLS Supporters Shield winner, so the winner of the regular season, would play a one-game playoff against the MLS Cup winner, or the winner of the playoff. And it kind of seemed like things were going in that direction. But late in the MLS season, after Messi's Inter Miami had already locked up the Supporters Shield for the best regular season performance, and before the MLS playoff actually started that the LA Galaxy would go on to win, FIFA just simply announced that Inter Miami was the last team in and would get that host spot. The whole thing felt completely manipulative, and there was no transparency from the very start. But what can you expect? And maybe it's not a bad thing that Messi will play in this tournament, but even he hasn't created the interest that Infantino was probably looking for. In fact, the opening match of this tournament is Inter Miami, playing in Miami against an Egyptian club. When FIFA first dropped the tickets, the cheapest ticket to get in was $350. Now, I'm filming this 4 days before the tournament starts, and I can buy those tickets today for $4, or roughly the price of 2 Chicago Sky tickets. It's been obvious for a few weeks now that Infantino is worried about these tickets, and I don't really know what he was expecting. When the actual World Cup comes around, people take off work to go to games or to go home and watch games with their family. It's appointment television. And they can get away with scheduling games in the middle of a workday. You can't really do that with the kinds of teams that are coming to these American cities. And it shouldn't really be that surprising to anyone that some of these games are having a hard time selling tickets. And if I'm being honest, they should have realized there was an issue more than a year ago when they were struggling to sell their media rights. There was a whole lot of public posturing and private negotiations with Apple for the media rights originally. FIFA was saying they wanted $4 billion for the rights. After the talks broke down with Apple, they opened them up to the public. And in the end, DAZN won the rights with TNT for about $1 billion. And it's likely that the second place bidder was nowhere near $1 billion. Look, there is no doubt summer soccer rules. Every couple of years we're watching the Euros or the World Cup or the Gold Cup, but it feels like these newer experiments like the Nations League are just things that they're adding to the calendar that no one really asked for. It feels like we have enough good soccer. And throwing money at these clubs might keep them interested.
The money we are talking about is $1 billion prize money, which is there for grab for the winning team.
But it's not clear that that's going to motivate those players to play or motivate the fans to actually want to watch. But in the end, a lot of us will watch this, myself included, because why not? There's not much else on in the summer, and it will be cool to see some of the smaller, lesser-known clubs get a shot against some of the biggest global brands. And you have to think generally, this tournament actually probably will mean a lot to any of the clubs that are not from Europe. But if the ratings and ticket sales flop like it seems like they might, you have to wonder what the real path forward is here. Do they switch it back to more of a traveling circus where they play games all around the world at once? Or do they maybe try and squeeze more European teams in to drum up a bit more interest? I don't know, but I do know if it makes any amount of money, even if we think it's a flop, you can expect this thing every 4 years until the end of time.